On today's episode of the Mark Titus Show, Mike Rutherford joins the program. Mike is the first guest. He's the OG guest on this show, if memory serves. Mike was the first guest we ever had. And Louisville football, don't look now, or actually do. I don't know why I said that. I meant the exact opposite. Do look. Louisville football is rolling. 6-0, just beat Notre Dame. The Jeff Brohm era is cruising down there in Louisville, and Louisville people are fired up. And Mike has a history of appearing on my shows through the years, different iterations of my show when everything's going wrong for Louisville. And I bring him on the show, and I'm like, Mike, what the fuck? And he's like, yeah, man, it's bad. It's really, really bad. And I figured I need to have Mike on when things are good. And so we talked a little Louisville football. We had to eventually bring up basketball. I mean, we had to. This is what we do on this show. So, talked about Louisville basketball, some ACC basketball talk in general. Some college basketball talk in general, all sorts of stuff. Also, we recorded this right after the Kansas news that Bill Self basically is going to get off scot-free for what he didn't do, but also he definitely did do, and everybody knows that there's some shady shit going on in Lawrence, including Kansas fans. They know, but they don't give a shit because he got away with it, so who really cares? The whole thing is just hilarious, really, at this point. But at the same time, Louisville had a national championship taken away, and they had their coach fired, so I wouldn't really necessarily think it was funny if I was a Louisville fan or an Oklahoma State fan. We talked to Mike a little bit about that. The FBI situation was such a farce, so ridiculous, and I don't know. You have no choice but to laugh. But anyway, Mike Rutherford is the man, and he joined me for about an hour just shooting the shit about all things Louisville, ACC, and college basketball in general. So here we go. All right, Mike Rutherford is here. He's the host of the Mike Rutherford Show. Pretty narcissistic, if you ask me, to name a show after yourself, but Mike's just wired that way. So, Mike, I want to talk about football. We'll talk about basketball, obviously, eventually, but Louisville football is red hot. Just beat Notre Dame. By the way, we're the two fan bases that have beat Notre Dame this year, so we have that in common. That's pretty cool. But I guess Jeff Brohm gets hired, and obviously everyone's super excited. He's a Louisville guy. That seemed to be the guy from the moment the job came open, and it was like all of our eggs are in our basket. We got to get Jeff Brohm. So the fact that he's the coach is a huge upgrade. I think, I'm not stunned by what's transpired in year one for him, but at the same time, this has to be a little bit surprising for you, right? That Louisville's 6-0, 3-0 in the ACC, just beat Notre Dame. Not just beat them, but kind of handed them their ass. Are you surprised at all by what's transpired so far?
A little bit that it's been this fast. I mean, being 6-0, the schedule definitely factors into it. When the schedule came out, I think a lot of Louisville fans looked at it and said, man, there's a real chance we could be 5-0 going into that Notre Dame game. But the fact that Brohm was able to crush in the transfer portal, to keep the recruiting class largely intact that was already in place when he got the job, is a big deal. But I mean, like you said, Jeff Brohm is he was already a god in Louisville. The Brohms are like the Mannings in Louisville. Everybody knows them. Everybody I played sports with Brian growing up. We played in high school together. He's kind of like the villain. He's like my Evan Turner. I give no credit to Brohm. I have every Brohm on the show besides Brian. I'll have his wife on. I'll have his kids on. Brian's banned from our show. That's just who he is. But everybody has a Brohm family story. And so the best part about the reaction to Louisville's upset of Notre Dame is you've got 75% of the fan base that is fucking told you. We've been telling you for years, when this guy comes here, this is what was going to happen. And you guys, a faction of the fan base was he's got a average record at Purdue. He's got the same type of overall record that Scott Satterfield. He's not going to be what you guys think he is. And now everybody else is just thumping their chests and being we would have won 7 national championships if we had hired Jeff Brohm in 2010. So, I mean, for a program that has been, I don't have to tell you this, the fan base has been a little bit down in recent years. Some not so cool stuff has happened. This is, it's been euphoria all week long. Everybody is just over the moon.
So what is the best case scenario in your mind for Louisville football? Do you think that there is a trajectory where obviously, well, maybe not obvious. I don't know. You could, the schedule's favorable for the rest of the way. You could sneak your way into maybe a bowl game you didn't think you'd be in, but never mind this year. Just moving forward, what do you see the Brohm era? Have you already started envisioning competing for national titles and playing at the upper echelon. Because Louisville football to me has always been fascinating. That as a program, you would never, I would never think that Louisville football is up there per se, but every so often you dip your toes in the elite waters, and Lamar comes along and it's like, yeah, of course. I mean, top 5 team. You got the Heisman Trophy winner. The Teddy years was the same sort of thing where it was like Louisville can beat anybody on any given night. But I also, like, if you ask me, like, who are the top tier football programs, I would obviously not put Louisville up there. So I guess, like, what, as you start forecasting out, like, where we go from here, what is your best case scenario with Louisville, realistically?
Well, first of all, we've already started envisioning the playoff. Like, it's all we've talked about on the radio for the last 3 days. So we are way ahead of the gun. We're looking at the schedule. We're like, you know what? Like, we're favored in all these games pretty much. Why not us?
Yeah.
Like, why can't we beat this year's TCU? So that's definitely already happening. But like you said, the Louisville football program is so weird. Like, when I was born in the 80s, they were talking about, like, disbanding the football program. There were multiple conversations of dropping out of the FBS or whatever it was called back then. There were some talks of getting rid of football altogether. And then Howard Schnellenberger comes in the 90s. He says, we're on a collision course with the national title. The only variable is time. And everybody's like, all right, whatever, dude. And then he goes to the Fiesta Bowl and beats Alabama in 1991. He gets Jeff Brohm to stay home. They go to the Liberty Bowl and beat Michigan State in 93. And you're like, here we go. Like, Louisville football's here to stay. And then he gets pissed off because they joined Conference USA and leaves for Oklahoma. And so when I'm, like, of age, like my formative sports years in the 90s, Louisville football is kind of like an afterthought. It's all basketball. And every now and then, like, maybe they're good enough to go to the GMAC Bowl in Detroit, or like maybe go to, they went to the Liberty Bowl a few times. And like, that was kind of it. Then Pitino comes, and in 2004 and 2006, they finished both those years number 6 in the country. You'll remember the 06 season was when Louisville's undefeated. They beat West Virginia, who's also undefeated. They get up to number 3 in the country, and number 1 and number 2 are Michigan and Ohio State. So they're going to play each other at the end of the year. And we're all thinking, like, hey, we're 3 wins away from playing either Ohio State or Michigan for the national title. And then Louisville goes up to Rutgers and loses to an undefeated team on Thursday night, and that tanks all that. And then, like, they fall back. They're not good again. Charlie Strong comes here. We get Teddy Bridgewater. We beat Florida in a Sugar Bowl. Lamar comes, and but when we fall hard. So we've had all these flash in the pan type success. And so to answer your question, I think that Louisville fans, ideally, they kind of want Jeff Brohm to be like their Denny Crum, the guy who just comes here, crushes it, sticks around forever because he just loves the place so much. And we finally have this era of, like, sustained success where, we don't expect to be Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, but like every now and then, once every 6 years, every 5 years, you're maybe going to that expanded 12-team playoff. You're flirting with the playoff. You're flirting with being a conference champion. And then into those other years, you're still like top 25 or top 25-ish good.
Yeah, which makes sense. I think Louisville hovering around being ranked, and then every so often taking a swing at, like, greatness makes sense in my brain. I'm sure you've already forecasted this. It was brought to my attention like an hour ago that there's a world in which Florida State, Carolina, and Louisville all go undefeated, and the ACC has to decide which undefeated team to leave home. I guess my question is, what the fuck? How's that possible? Like, what's going on here that the conference could do this? Like, I don't know. Like, that was brought to my attention. I was like, there's no way that's true. I checked it like 5 different times. Like, what? You're right. I was looking at Louisville's schedule. I was like, okay, you got Duke coming up. Obviously, at Pitt's not a gimme per se. At Miami's probably the toughest game, but you get 9 days of rest because you're playing Virginia on a Thursday before that. You get Kentucky in the rivalry game. I mean, there are losable games here, but I think it's reasonable for you to start talking yourself into an undefeated season. But what happens then, Mike? What do we do if Louisville goes undefeated, but so does Carolina and FSU, and you're the odd man out?
Well, the best part of this, so we just talked about this literally on my radio show for like an hour. It is, if the tiebreaker, if the 3 teams go 8-0, the tiebreaker is the combined ACC records of the ACC teams that they've played. There is a possibility that all 3 teams will have, in that scenario, their tiebreakers will come out with the exact same record again. You know what the tiebreaker is after that?
What?
They draw names out of a goddamn hat. I swear to God, it's in the rule book. They draw names. Can you imagine, like, They would have to stream that live.
Yeah.
It would be, Jim Phillips is sitting there. I mean, Louisville fans would have no hope whatsoever that we're going to get in over Carolina or Florida State.
Right.
Close an envelope. But I'm thinking can you imagine the tension if they draw the first name? They'd ham it up like the first rose goes to Florida State. Like, we're fucked. Like, this is going to be terrible. I think they should let the coaches fight for who gets to go to the title game. I think that would be a lot of fun. Hunger Games situation.
Yeah. I think you draw the first name out of the hat, go to a 10-minute commercial break. Just let it linger. Let everybody just lose their minds. I think actually I think you and Carolina makes the most sense to me because you could sneak two teams into the playoff. Because I think if Florida State's undefeated and they're the odd one out, they're in Louis, then have Louisville and Carolina play. The winner is undefeated conference champion. They're in, and then maybe you have a case for Florida State being in. That seems to be. If I was to rig it, I would put Carolina and Louisville because Florida State will figure it out on their own. But it's exciting, man. It's exciting. Jeff Brohm. What cracks me up. So leading into this weekend is Ohio State's going back to Purdue for the first time since 2018. I want to say it was the Tyler Trent game. And I'm seeing all this stuff about Tyler Trent, who, was obviously a great story and very inspirational. And I love Tyler Trent, but it's funny to me because with the Buckeyes going back to West Lafayette, there's a lot of conversations about that game and how Tyler Trent inspired the Boilermakers to pull off the big upset of Ohio State. And then you look back on it now, Ohio State's defensive coordinator is Alex Grinch, who's at USC right now. Giving up 1 million points. Jeff Brohm and Brian Brohm are at Purdue, and they have Rondale Moore just running all over the field. And now I look back and I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't want to discredit Tyler Trent and the inspiration he brought on that night, but also the Brohm brothers just kind of had Rondale Moore at their disposal and just fucking outcoached the worst defensive coordinator in major college football right now. So
they've proven to be pretty good. They also had some inspiration. I don't know if you are even aware of this. We had some inspiration last week against Notre Dame. This was a very personal thing for me. I got attacked by the entire Rudy Rudiger family on social media. So it was the reverse inspirational story. I wrote a seemingly harmless post, what I thought was a seemingly harmless post on Card Chronicle, my website, basically laying out all the reasons why Rudy's dad in the movie Rudy is the biggest asshole dad in the history of cinema. I made it very clear that I was talking just about the Ned Beatty character, not the actual human being. The Rudiger family found it. They pounced like some fucking hyenas. I every single moment I've got Kip Rudiger, Angelo Rudiger. How dare you talk about my grandfather like this? He's the greatest man in the history of the world. And I had to be to all of them, I'm like, you didn't read this. I'm like, I say this in the story. You didn't read one word of this. They're he was the greatest man alive. You're just ruining his legacy. So the game felt very personal for me by the time that we got there actually on Saturday. And I felt at a certain point, I was do I hate the movie Rudy now and Rudy himself? It ruined Rudy a little bit for me.
Do I actually hate the family also? Because I originally didn't. I was just talking about the character, but boy, I got to tell you, now you're kind of making me hate you guys for real.
That's exactly what happened. I feel I can't watch the movie in the same way, and there's no way to get around it. His entire family in the movie are the biggest bunch of assholes ever. They're horrible human beings. That even the one nice brother that he has, the most redeeming Rudiger, sleeps with his girlfriend 2 months after he goes to college and moves in on her. It's horrible. It's awful. That was my only point.
So Jack Harlow and Donovan Mitchell are at the game, and that's obviously big time that you got the celebs out. But you know me, Mike. When I think Louisville celebs, I think of Jennifer Lawrence, and is she officially excommunicated? Has she been Ashley Judd by U of L? Why is it that every time there's a big Louisville basketball or football game, J-Law is nowhere to be found anymore? What happened?
Well, every time she would come to games, we would lose. So that was the thing. But the Lawrence family, I can tell you this firsthand. They are the most diehard of the diehard. They are huge U of L fans. They, boosters, all that stuff. They live and die with every game. Apparently, though, she just she's one of those people, and they actually exist, that just don't care about sports that much. I think they try to get her more into the U of L stuff than she actually wants to be. She grew up as a Louisville fan, but didn't really care about the games that much, didn't really get into it. So when she comes, it kind of feels like she's faking a little bit. The thing about Jack Harlow is he is a diehard U of
He's
L
insane.
fan.
He's insane.
Grew up,
yeah.
Like he'll reel off like Edgar Sosa and like the starting lineup from 2008 and all this stuff. Like he is very much a bona fide diehard U of L fan. And so it's not, it's a cool thing to see him coming here and supporting Jeff Brohm and doing all that stuff. It's genuine.
All right, let's talk about the basketball team. Put it off long enough. I guess the obvious question is there's no way you guys are going to be as bad this year, right? Like you can't be as bad as you were last year, right? Right?
Let the record show that I came here under the impression that there would be no basketball questions.
Hold on.
You made no mention of basketball whatsoever when you invited me to come back on the show.
That's not true. I mean, it might be true.
100% true.
Hold on.
You'd be like,
wait. I'm going to read the text. I said.
Read the text right now.
I said, hold on. Let me see. What's your schedule like? Want to hop on the show and talk Brohm and whatnot? All right. So the whatnot is doing a lot of heavy lifting. The whatnot's doing a lot of heavy lifting. I did say whatnot, though. I did say whatnot.
Anyway.
All right. We can talk about football.
Talking about Jeff Brohm. No, we've got, I've made very few guarantees. I don't do the whole like hot take guarantee radio thing a lot. I've made like 4 guarantees in my radio career. They've all been true. The 5th one was this: Louisville basketball is winning at least 5 games this year. Guarantee it. It's a Mike Rutherford guarantee. Take it to the bank. They're not going 4-28 again this year. They're winning at least 5 games.
People forget you guys lost the first 3 games of the season last year by 1 point each. I'm sure you do not forget this, but you were 3 bounces of the ball away from winning 3 more games than you did. You almost doubled your win total in the first 3 games. You were. Who knows what happens if you start the season 3-0 and you're entering the Maui Invitational 3-0? Who knows what happens? That's one of the great what ifs in college basketball history, I'd say.
We did also lose the last game of the Mike Pegues era by 1 point in the ACC tournament. So we lost 4 straight games by 1 point
that's right.
Before Maui, which at that point we were craving the 1-point losses. I'll give U of L credit for this. I don't know if credit's the right word. They're taking the Georgetown philosophy of creating like the worst possible non-conference schedule to try and stack some wins.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the non-con schedule for Louisville. It's bad this year. They've got like Coppin State. They play, I think they opened with UMBC on opening night. They were like, oh, New Mexico State had to cancel their season because they had a murder and a player hazing scandal. I think we can get them, pick them up, put them on there. Let's do it. They look like college basketball fans maybe don't follow that closely. They probably think New Mexico State's good again this year. Put them on the schedule. So they've got a lot of that going on. Their only really challenging games, they have to play Kentucky. Mm-hmm. They're going to play in the Empire Classic. They'll play Texas in the first game, and then either Indiana or Connecticut in the second game. And that's when I think people are going to be like, okay, how bad is it, or is there some real hope here? Because they should, being the operative word here, they should take care of business for their first 3 or 4 games this season because the non-con schedule is not very good.
But where are you at as maybe not you personally, but the fan base? Where are you at where like you want to win games, but also if you win too much, maybe does Kenny Payne stick around for 2? I don't know. I don't want to drag the mood down. We should talk about football. We can go back to football. It's
okay. You're walking the line that I have to walk to every day, where it's like on one hand you've got Jeff Brohm out there being like, you got video of his pregame speech being like, there's a winner and there's a loser. Let's go win the game. And then Kenny Payne in his pre-scrimmage video being like, we don't judge things on wins and losses. We're trying to pass the eye test. And everybody's like, oh my God, you lost 28 games last year. All of us are judging it on wins and losses. It's driving everyone crazy. To answer, I think that, and I don't speak for the entire fan base for sure. I would venture to guess that like 60 to 65% of the fan base feels like this is just a matter of getting through these 5 months and then seeing.
We'll figure out, what's next moving forward. I was reading. I buy all the preview magazines. Obviously, I thumb through them all. I'm reading through the. I think it was a Blue Ribbon one. And I'm reading through this section on Louisville, and I copied and pasted it because it cracked me up. The section said this: how is Payne better equipped to handle everything he must handle the second time around? Great question, Payne says. I think what last season did for me, it reinforced all the things that you believe in, the way you run your program. It reinforced those things. The way you recruit, the way you train, the way you practice, the attention to detail, the way you watch film, the way you eat, all of it. There was a lack of acknowledgement about every single detail that goes into winning basketball. That was his quote about last season. And he said it all reinforced. Like I had to stop reading it. I just started laughing. I was like, "What the hell is this quote?" He's like,
the Louisville fans have an issue. We're used to, Rick Pitino would hold a press conference like if a player sneezed. Like he wanted to hold court. So we heard from Rick Pitino a lot. He was doing radio shows. He was doing media sessions. He was all over the place. Kenny Payne does not like to talk. Like, we did not hear from him after the last ACC tournament loss. You would think, like, having the worst season in the history of Louisville basketball, he'd be out there in April or May, doing the whole thing. Like, stick with us. Here's my plan to get this thing back on track. We didn't hear from him until, I think, like, late July, early August. And so everyone's like, he needs to talk. And then he talks, and everyone's like, I can't fucking believe this guy. Like, he needs to shut up. So it's a double-edged sword. Every time he talks, I think a lot of fans feel worse about what he says. But then when he doesn't talk, we're like, the whole moving in silence thing doesn't really work when you're 4-20. And recruiting's not going great right now for the 24 class. And he says he doesn't like using the portal. It's like, well, buddy, I mean, you're going to have – I don't know what to tell you. You're going to have to start using the portal a little bit here. So, I don't know if you saw either – Louisville's top recruit from last year's class goes to Australia before even having their first practice with Trenton Flowers. That was another, every Louisville fan is kind of jumping off. Then Nolan Smith, the top assistant, he interviews for a G League head coaching job. And I think there are a lot of people who are like, is this just bad optics, or is this really a disaster scenario unfolding here? And we won't really know until they start playing this season.
Trenton Flowers had one highlight of his tenure at Louisville, and it was when he tried to dunk from the free throw line.
It was fully reflective of what's going on.
If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I implore everyone listening or watching to pause the program and just go search Trenton Flowers dunk. His dunk, that was just like one clip that came out of his tenure at Louisville. It was pretty apt. I'm sorry. I don't want to do this. You guys got a kid from Gary though. I saw. What's his name? Davis, Koron Davis. He kid from Gary, Indiana. Koron Davis. Is he going to be good?
This is first of all, he's the cousin of John L. Davis, who lit it up in the NCAA
tournament. Yeah, okay.
That gives me some hope. But here's my concern is like nobody knows anything about this kid. He played JUCO in California. He was in like that secondary JUCO league. And when he announced his commitment when we announced that we'd offered him a scholarship, I went to the only website that covers JUCO recruiting, and he wasn't ranked anywhere in the top 200 JUCO recruits in America.
Oh no, never.
Nobody knows. Like, did you watch any of the Last Chance U, the basketball?
Oh
ones?
Yeah.
So he the East Los Angeles. He plays in that league, and those kids. You watch that show, and you're like, damn, that kid's really good. And then you look him up now, and he's like, the backup at Long Beach State, right? Like that's the highest level. Koron Davis played on a team that was much, 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 much worse than East Los Angeles Community College and put up good numbers. And he's going to Louisville where they expect him to play a key part in this year's team. And maybe he is good. I'm told that he was a Danny Manning recruiting special. Like this Manning was the guy that kind of found him. But the fact of the matter is nobody has any idea if this kid can play a lick or not. And we're all just going to find out as we go. It's one of the most bizarre recruitments that I've ever seen as a Louisville fan.
But that's good because your opponents don't have tape on him either. No one knows what to expect the first time Louisville plays. They're going to have no idea. I just saw he was from Gary, and he put up monster numbers in JUCO, and I was like, I like this kid. I know nothing about him, but it seems like nobody knows anything about him. What about the ACC at large? I guess the first obvious question is who are you going to miss most? Pastner, Mike Bray, or Jim Boeheim? Power rank those. Fuck, marry, kill those three coaches that the ACC lost.
I do love that Josh Pastner now got a job at NBC because he is the college basketball Michael Scott. So he's going back to where
there we go.
Started. It feels full circle. We got Pastner, Boeheim. Who's the third one? Who
Boeheim, Bray.
Oh, God. I mean, you can't marry Bray. He's
you can't marry Bray. You don't bring Bray home to mom. You don't bring Bray home to mom.
You go out, like you party with couples, and like there's the super fun guy, and everybody's like, man, I love this fucking guy. And the wife's like, yeah, imagine living with him for like 24 hours a day, every day. Like Bray is that guy. I think he'd be hard to be married to. So we're banging Bray. We're probably marrying Pastner. He'd be so supportive. Supportive. Those voicemails that he leaves, it brightened my day. I could use some. He kisses you every time he comes home from work, guy. And then I'm getting rid of Boeheim. He's curmudgeon-y. I can't be around it. I don't need that negative energy.
That's probably how I would play it too. I am excited that Pastner is going to be broadcasting. Is he doing studio stuff? Is he going to be doing color stuff?
I think he's doing studio stuff.
Studio makes the most sense.
The Peacock NBC deal.
Yeah, I want his personality to flourish, and I don't want him to. I don't want him calling games. I want him just cheesing on camera and at halftime and pregame. That seems like a perfect role for him. So like how do we see the ACC this year? It feels like it's Duke and everyone else kind of. I don't know. Carolina, like people seem to think that like Caleb Love's the scapegoat. Now that he's gone, they're just gonna snap back into form, which like I don't really think it's necessarily going to work that way. I mean, they do have players, but I'm kind of in a wait and see approach with Carolina. Miami's going to be good. Virginia is going to rely on transfers, which is shocking to me because I just don't feel like Tony. That's what that just doesn't like. It feels like Tony Bennett should be the one coach that's like not getting transfers. Because that worries me a little bit. Like what's your read on the ACC? Is it Duke and everyone else? Do you think?
I trust Miami at this point. Like I think Jim Larrañaga is a boss. He returns enough from that team last year to feel confident. So I'm not going to say Duke and everybody else. It's kind of Duke, Miami, and everybody else. I've got no handle on North Carolina. I'm kind of like you where, I wrote a big thing defending ranking Carolina first last year. I'm like, they're not, they're not who you think they are. They're not this year's UCLA. That's all bull, like all this stuff. And then they went out and they became the first AP top 25 team to not make the tournament.
They weren't to defend you, Mike. They were not UCLA. They were much worse. They were much worse. So you weren't wrong. So yeah, you weren't wrong.
I mean, maybe Hubert Davis is Kevin Ollie. Maybe he's like the one-hit wonder and he's going to prove it this year, or maybe they're going to be a lot better. I have no idea what to expect from Carolina. I think they're going to be good, but if they totally flop, I'm not going to be shocked. I think Clemson's going to be pretty good. Virginia, I'm with you. It's a weird thing because even when Tony Bennett would get the occasional McDonald's All-American, it took him at least a year and a half to start playing that kid consistently.
Right.
Like DeAndre Hunter redshirted. Kyle Guy, we didn't see a lot of him until midway through his sophomore year. And now you're taking transfers and expecting them to learn that system right away. I don't know if it's going to work.
Yeah, that's. I'm the biggest Tony Bennett fan outside of Charlottesville, and I just get worried about the future. I worry about Bennett ball in this modern era of college basketball with the transfer portal and with guys jacking threes. Like a pack line defense worked when people didn't realize that 3 was worth more than 2, and then that trickled down from the NBA, and now you got college guys shooting threes. And I don't know. I worry about that. I worry about, like you said, when you're bringing in all these transfers and it becomes a revolving door, it's harder to teach guys a defense that they're not used to playing and a system that they're – and I just kind of worry about – I think Reese Beekman's awesome. I think he's going to be great for them. But I don't know. Tony, I do trust Tony. They won the ACC last year, right? Am I remembering that correctly? Miami and Virginia, I thought, split. Didn't Miami and Virginia split the regular season and then – Duke won the tournament, right? Yeah. But yeah, for whatever reason, Virginia every year just feels like they're kind of under the radar for a team that won the national. Like Tony doesn't get the benefit of the doubt at all, weirdly. But then I don't really. But I kind of understand why. I don't know. Virginia's always fascinating to me. They're always going to be fascinating. But Miami. So Miami to you has gotten to that point. You think Larrañaga has become in this era of ACC basketball where all these legends have retired. Larrañaga's the guy. Where you're just like, I don't care what the roster is, which, to be fair, Nigel Pack's back, Woogler Popper's back, Omir's back. But you just kind of have the attitude of like, I trust Larrañaga, and whatever his roster is, he's going to figure it out.
Kind of at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, it helps that you return 3 stars from a Final Four team. But the only real down years that he's had at Miami were when he got – it's been a lost story and all this. They got totally fucked by the FBI deal. They were on the initial indictment that the FBI put out there, and then it comes out that the players, Nasir Little, who ended up going to North Carolina, the guy that was getting money to allegedly, and he was like, I'm friends with Larrañaga, I'm paying Nasir Little and his family off Miami, was just keeping all the money for himself. So Larrañaga came out and was vehemently denied everything when it first came out. Miami was like, we did nothing wrong. And then when the FBI quietly put out a superseding indictment 9 months later, they took Miami out of it. So Miami still got caught up in all this, They lost all their top recruits, and they had those 3 really down years to the point where, they were talking about firing Larinaga if he didn't have that season where they ended up going to the Sweet 16 a few years ago. And since then, he was really good before the FBI stuff. He's been even better since the FBI stuff. And I do think that he deserves he gets the Tony Bennett treatment now for me, where I expect him to be really good and be one of the best teams in the ACC.
Yeah, and he's figured out the guard play part of it, where Omir's not a big man, and I don't know, you look at his roster and you can poke holes in it, but he's really good at just letting his guards cook, so to speak, and that seems to be what wins in college basketball these days. Speaking of the FBI, you brought it up. We're recording this on Wednesday when news is broken that Kansas. I would say it was a slap on the wrist, but I actually think a literal, if the NCAA would have called Bill Self into the NCAA offices in Indianapolis and actually slapped him on the wrist, I think that would have been a harsher punishment than they actually got. I think they would have given him one slap on the wrist. That would have been harsher than what Kansas got. Your emotions, your thoughts, processing. Is this? I think this was the last case, right? Is the FBI saga is officially done now that the Kansas judgment has been passed? As a guy whose team got absolutely fucked by all of this, seeing what has transpired and now the dust has settled and basically Rick Pitino is the only guy of note that was fired. Your emotions today as you see what Kansas was not punished, basically.
My emotion, well, one, I'm going to miss the IARP. RIP to the IARP. It was very much I had a teacher in high school who taught geometry who I hated, who would not let me drop down to a lower level. He's like, you can do this. I'm like, I really can't. I'm bad at math. And he was an asshole. He had to have surgery midway through the year. And he brought in this sub who could not have given a shit less. Shout out to Miss Davis. I love you forever. So when Miss Davis was there, everybody got a 99 in the class. It was great. And it saved all of our grades for the entire year. And then he came back from surgery and we all got 75s. The IARP was basically Miss Davis. She's just very cool, very much hey, some stuff probably went on before I got here, but now that I'm here, we're going to let it slide. You're going to be okay. We're going to move forward. It's time to look at the future. And nobody besides Oklahoma State really got punished that much. Now, Kansas they had to vacate the 15 games that Sylvia DeSosa played in, and they gave up the 2018 banner. Which my initial reaction was why couldn't they have won 2 more games and then we could have somebody with us that had a national championship taken away? It made me feel a little bit better about myself, but that didn't happen. I know Kentucky fans were very excited because they got the all-time winningest program record back that Kansas just overtook last year. So there was that going on, but it was there was a part of me that was shocked when you look at the fact that Rick Pitino, which this was part of the problem too. All the Adidas guys on their calls or their texts, they're like, Rick has no idea what the hell's going on here. He's not involved in any of this. He's not which again is part of the problem here.
Yeah.
He had a little bit more of an idea, but he really and truly, according to everybody, did not know that this paying of players was going on. Whereas Bill Self, he's having dinner with TJ Gassnola before he's inducted into the Hall of Fame. TJ Gassnola's texting him and he's like, hey, besides DeAndre Ayton, we've always gotten you every guy that you've ever wanted. Bill Self's totes, fist bump emoji, cash band emoji, 100 emoji. They're texting back and forth. They're clearly very close, and it's very obvious that they helped Kansas get players for years and years and years.
Of course.
But they're saying they're Kansas is our top priority. Everybody else comes second. All this stuff, and yet and still, it's nope, 4 games for him, 4 games for Townsend. It's all good. We're moving forward. It is a little bit the fact that Will Wade is a head coach now.
I know.
It's shocking.
I can't figure out how Self had the self-imposed, pun intended, I guess, the ban, the suspension, I should say. But then also their messaging is we've done absolutely nothing wrong, but just in case we did, we're gonna suspend them these games. Yeah. And but we didn't do anything wrong. But if we did, we're still going to suspend. Well, we're suspending them not for the things that we did wrong, but more so because you think that we did things wrong, which we didn't. But we're going to suspend. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I don't. It's just, I'm mad. I'm not clutching my pearls saying Kansas deserved to be punished because I truly don't give a shit. When I saw the news that Kansas basically got off the hook and Kansas off the hook, I don't care. I mean, we've talked about this a million times, Mike. I want Louisville's banner to go back up. Like, none of this shit actually matters to me. But I am frustrated that I was sucked into this vortex of like thinking that shit was going to pop off and shit was going to go down. And I look back on like the last 6 years and I'm like, I was lied to by the FBI. I was lied to by the NCAA. I was lied to by HBO when they made a documentary, and I watched every second of it, and I was like, oh, shit, here we go. There's how many moments along the way where I was like, this changes everything. Holy shit. And for basically the dust to settle and like nothing really happened, but it did kind of happen, and like Louisville got fucked a little bit, and Oklahoma State got fucked a little bit. But Kansas doesn't. But like, you know, it's all just like a complete farce. And I say that to say not like self-deserved to get punished, but more so put the banner back up, Louisville. Put the banner back up. Oklahoma State should like just completely secede from the NCAA at this point if I was them. I just want to see like everybody that got fucked to like fight back in some way. I just don't know what that looks like.
I'm ready. I've been saying put the banner up for like 6 years. I'm ready for it to go back up. And I think eventually it is going to go up. But 6 years after the fact, can we all agree that FBI press conference is objectively one of the funniest things that's ever happened in the history of college basketball? Because you go back and you look at it, and that guy, who, by the way, got fired by Trump like a month after the press conference, everything he's talking about sounds like it was written for like a Michael Crichton book or like, a blow 'em up movie. The famous "We've got your playbook" line.
Right.
There were 17 zingers in there where he's like, buddy, we're going to have fucking Wright State in the national championship in 4 years when we're done with you. And then nothing happens. And the moment that I knew that it was all bullshit, that I was like, well, we're going to get screwed again and nothing's going to happen, is when he gave out the hotline number, when he gave out the NARC number, and he's like, fellow coaches, if you don't want your program to get caught first, turn them into us. I'm like, you got nothing. You're not going to do anything here. Remember they raided the Nike headquarters, the Nike guy, the EYBL circuit guy. Like, whatever happened with that? Nothing. Like, the whole thing was just the biggest smoke show of all time.
Oh, my God.
Absolutely nothing came out of it outside of Louisville having to fire Rick Pitino and Cade Cunningham not getting to play in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. Jeff D'Angelo was like the informant that just took all the money and like went to Vegas and got hookers. Just like played blackjack and got hookers with the FBI guy. Right? Like, there was like the one FBI agent that was on the case.
Jeff D'Angelo. Jeff D'Angelo was the made-up guy. That was the alias. Yeah. That was the guy that infiltrated it. The agent that like used all the money to party. I don't know if we know his name or whatever, but I mean the fact that we're even talking about this, how fucking ridiculous was this entire thing? But yeah, there was the one guy that just took all the money and just gambled it and did strippers. But Jeff D'Angelo, I think, was the alias of the guy that I don't think that was the same guy.
That wasn't the same guy. Jeff D'Angelo wasn't the. Hold on, let me see. FBI accused of misusing funds on. Yeah, I need to know this. I should know this. This is according to Michael McCann of Sports Illustrated. Jeff D'Angelo was the lead investigator on the case. Yeah, undercover as a wealthy real estate investor. However, D'Angelo has been accused of wrongfully spending government money on gambling and other activities while he was undercover.
It's incredible. So he was the guy. He did it all. We need a biography on this guy. 30 on Jeff D'Angelo.
I want it so badly, dude. Going back, I need to go back. I might do that tonight. Just go back and rewatch that original FBI press conference with the flow chart. It's just like a circle, and like the circle's got like the dumbest shit written on it. It's like pay players then go to colleges profit. Like that's the flow chart they got.
The worst part about the HBO documentary, because I watched it too. The worst part was you realize like they were pretty much done, and then like they were ready to like go forward with like allegations against LSU and Kansas and I think NC State, and then the one Louisville assistant comes bursting in like the goddamn Kool-Aid man at the last second, and they get him on the wiretap in Las Vegas, like where he's like even in the room he doesn't really talk about anything, he doesn't say anything, but they realize they're like, we can get Rick Pitino, and that's going to make this whole thing really pop. Like, and so they become so focused on Rick Pitino after that. It was just like we came so close to not being involved whatsoever in that, and then immediately become the face of it. It was just classic Louisville luck. What are you going to do?
All right, speaking of Pitino, he's back. I mean, he's been back in college basketball for a little while now, but he's back in big-time college basketball. He's at St. John's, obviously. Where are you at? I ask you every single time you've come on any iteration of my show. I ask if Rick Pitino gets brought up, and I ask you, what are your feelings on Rick Pitino? How many St. John's games do you think you're watching this year? How hard are you cheering for them? What do you expect from Slick Rick in Queens? All that sort of thing.
I love Rick Pitino. I will always love Rick Pitino. It is a little bit different now that he's at a fellow Power 5 school. Because at Iona, you're like, go get him, Rick. Like, go Gales.
Yeah.
Like, St. John's, he came here and he immediately started competing with us for players in the transfer portal. And I'm like, well, this is less cool. And he got a bunch of them. Like RJ Luis from UMass, we really wanted. He ended up going there. I mean, he's assembled a roster that I think will be able to compete immediately. And I fully expect them to go to the NCAA tournament in his first year there. And it's going to drive Louisville fans insane. One, because there's a group that feels like Pitino's responsible for all this. And now he's got off scot-free and he's thriving and he's killing it. And there's another group that I think still loves Rick Pitino and wishes he was the head coach here and is pissed off at the way it all played out. And they're like, see, we should be doing this right now as opposed to just, toiling in obscurity right now. So I think it's going to be a lot of mixed emotions, but I'm hoping for the best for Rick. I'm glad to see him back as the king of New York.
Yeah. That would be different. Him being at St. John's is a little less fun for Louisville people, I imagine. But no, I think he has a real chance. I said this on the show not too long ago. I think he's got a chance to be he won't get to Dion levels, but I think if they start hot and they beat Michigan, that's like their big game that they have early in the season is they play Michigan in Madison Square Garden, who Michigan's not even that good, but Michigan's a name brand that people know and Juwan Howard's a coach that people know and all that. If he beats Michigan and they're undefeated, I feel like there's going to be a push. There's going to be a media push from guys like me who tore this man down, now trying to pretend like I didn't, and I'm building him back up. I'm just gonna pump all the air in Rick Pitino's tires and be like, St. John's to the Final Four, book it, it's done. I really think there's a chance we have a Dion, a diet version of the Deion Sanders hype with Rick Pitino, if and only if they got to win games. Obviously, you got to start out high. They can't be 6-4 to start the first 10, but. I think that would be so fucking awesome if he starts out hot and St. John's is ranked 18th or something and they just keep climbing. I don't know how much fun it'd be for you as you guys keep stacking L's, but I don't know. Koron Davis though, he might get it done.
We do have Koron Davis.
What else in college basketball? Who do you like this year? Do you have any takes you're comfortable throwing out as the season is quickly approaching?
I think that we're sleeping on UConn a little too much as the potential first back-to-back national champions since Florida in 06-07. I think that we're not talking enough. I think Danny Hurley has the goods. I mean, there's so much talk about the old generation moving out. Pitino is still kind of one of the last holdovers. Boeheim's gone. Coach K's gone. Roy, all these coaches that we grew up defining the sport with. They've moved on, and who's that next generation? It can't just be Nate Oates and Eric Musselman. I think we're kind of sleeping on Danny Hurley being next up and being that guy. I think he's got a crazy playbook. I think his style resonates with players. I think he's just insane enough to thrive in this new college basketball environment. So I think, I'm kind of big on UConn this year. I know Klingon's been a little bit banged up. Assuming he's healthy enough to play a full season and be good to go, I think that they check most of the boxes you need to be.
Yeah,
6 wins in 2-3 weeks.
Yeah. Klingon's foot, it's a foot deal, right? That's the injury. Yeah. That bothers me a little bit. Having big guys with foot injuries, they don't exactly just heal and, especially over the course of a season. But he's fucking awesome. They got Cam Spencer from Rutgers, who was Rutgers' offense for stretches last year, where they would just look to Cam Spencer and be like, please score. And he's like, all right, I'll do it. I'm worried. I love those three guys that they lost so much, Sanogo and Jackson and Hawkins. I loved them so much, and I'm worried they're gonna miss them. But I think you're right about Hurley that the old school is out and the new school is coming in. I think he's the perfect representation of basically an old school guy who understands the new. He's the perfect. He's just a younger version of an old school coach. So he's perfectly suited to. In a world where Hubert Davis, I sometimes feel like Hubert Davis is too nice, and this world of coaches wanting to be buddy with all their players, which is not really a criticism of Hubert Davis. That's just one of the first ones that come to mind is Hubert Davis needed to motherfuck North Carolina at times last year, and I feel like he couldn't do that. Dan Hurley has the perfect combination of being a player's coach, but also being willing to motherfuck his guys, and that would excite me if I was UConn people don't need to be told that their coach is awesome, but like that's pretty encouraging moving forward when you do think about the landscape of coaches, I would say. So I think I agree with you. I'm just worried about Klingon's foot more than anything else.
He also, I saw that, like, I wish I could give this person credit, but there's somebody who tracks all the plays like that every college basketball team runs. He keeps track of like a coach's playbook, and they came to the conclusion that like Danny Hurley has more different plays or ran more different plays last year than any coach in college basketball. He comes from, I read that book, The Miracle of St. Anthony, back in the day by Woj, about his dad at St. Anthony. And like, you realize like his dad is just like a basketball genius, like a legit guy who could have coached anywhere he wanted to for a long time. And that's how he and his brother grew up, learning from him. And so I think you're right. He's got the perfect combination of legit basketball acumen, like great X's and O style. I think he resonates with the kids. I think he's fucking crazy, which is a good thing in the best possible way. We've talked about that at Louisville. Like you need a coach at a job like Louisville, and I think also at a job like UConn, who's like a little bit insane.
Nuts, yeah.
It's a weird thing to say, but like you have to kind of put it above everything in your life. And I think Chris Mack is a really good basketball coach. I think he'll resurface at some point in the next couple of years. But I don't think he ever put Louisville basketball ahead of like his family, which I it's weird to say. Like you kind of have to do it a little bit. It's a 24/7 job. Like I think John Calipari, Rick Pitino, some of the other coaches that have thrived at these places, like they cared more, and whether they admit it or not, they cared more about their teams winning than they cared about anything else in their lives.
Yeah.
And that's why they were so good and why the fans love them so much. And I think Danny Hurley is kind of the same way. Again, he'll never admit that, but I think it's probably true.
I need you to hate your fucking family if you're going to coach Louisville.
Not hate, just neglect.
Just be willing to neglect them. Speaking of Cal, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, Mike. I can't help it. This is something I do every offseason. I do drink the Cal Kool-Aid. I drink the Kentucky Kool-Aid. I hate it about myself, but it's happening again. They win the Global Jam. It's an event that I didn't even know existed until Kentucky played in it, and then they won it, and I was like, well, goddamn, Kentucky's winning the national title this year, I guess. So I've slowly, basically like every guest I've had on the show since Kentucky won Global Jam, I've floated like, I think Kentucky could be pretty good this year, just for them to just be like, absolutely not. It's definitely not happening. And finally, at long last, I feel like I'm on the edge. I just need a little nudge into the abyss of like, what was I thinking? Of course, they're going to be dog shit. It's a completely new roster of freshmen that aren't going to gel together. Push me over, Mike. Push me over. Be the Kentucky hate give me the Kentucky hate I need, that this team is not actually going to be good, because I'm worried that like Cal, like. I'm worried that Cal weirdly is going to like start all the way back over at square one and just like have this group of freshmen that like he doesn't overcoach anymore, and they are super talented, and he's just got a good mix of like, dude. I'm just worried he's got like a fluid roster, and losing Oscar is going to be a huge deal for them, where it opens up their offense. And I that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried that Cal spent a lot of time looking in the mirror saying, I'm overcoaching. I need to go back to the good old days when I just rolled out the ball and let talent win. And I think they're super fucking talented. Talk me out of it, Mike, please. I'm begging you.
He's trying to do that for sure. Like, I think this is kind of like, this is what he wants his last act at Kentucky to be. Like, whatever I've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years hasn't been working. We're going back to square one. We're going back to those first 7 years when we went to 5 Final Fours or whatever it was. I think the issue is it's not 2012 anymore. The sport is totally different. I think they are going to be overly reliant on freshmen. What was the stat? Like, I think 2 of the top 100 scorers in college basketball last year were true freshmen. And if that holds true again this year, like they're kind of fucked. Like they've got a couple of good guys from last year's team that came back. But they are, if DJ Wagner and Rob Willingham and Justin Edwards and all these guys like aren't the goods and carrying that team, like there's no hope for them being a realistic national title contender. But I can tell you who agrees with you right now. Kentucky fans. Like,
I know.
This is the difference.
They're fired up,
psyche.
dude.
The psyche between Louisville and Kentucky fans is so different. Like UK fans, they're in this never-ending cycle of, they lose one game to a really good team in December, and it's the worst thing that's ever happened. Cal doesn't know what he's doing. He's past his prime. Get him out of here. Hire Nate Oates. He's not playing normal basketball. They have a disappointing performance in the NCAA tournament. Like, they're like, this guy sucks. It's over. And then every offseason, something happens where they're like, we're going to win the fucking national title. They go to the Global Jam, and they did look really good. And they're all like, they're fully bought in. Like every UK fan I know is like, you think we're going to be like number 20? Are you like, there ain't 4 teams better than UK. I'll tell you that much right now. They're all like all the way back in. And it's just going to take that first like late November, early December loss for them to be right back to like, Cal just doesn't get it. We got to go positionless. We got to get the next wave in. But right now, they're doing the standard UK in October thing, which is like, we may not lose a game. Like they are fully in on this team, and they are like just personally insulted at anybody that has them ranked outside the top 10.
And then they get the Croatian kid, and everyone that cracked me up because there's not a soul in Lexington other than like Cal and his staff that have seen this kid play. There's not a soul, and you get the headline that Kentucky has landed a 7-foot Croatian guy and now he's eligible. And I do feel like Kentucky fans have lost their minds about how he's going to change everything, and maybe he will. It cracks me up because I'm like, there's no way you people actually know who the fuck this guy is and what he can do and what he brings to your team other than just things that Cal's like. It reminded me of Bob Knight did that back in the day with Ivan Renko, was a fake recruit that he made up, and he told everybody that he had signed a kid named Ivan Renko from Europe, and he did it just to troll recruiting services, just to see if the media would report on the star European that was coming to Bloomington, and they did, and they just talked about like this unstoppable force that was coming to IU named Ivan Renko. That's what this reminded me of. Was Cal's like, we got this 7-foot Croatian guy, and then like every Kentucky fan's like, oh yeah, he's good. He's real. I heard Porzingis. I heard baby Porzingis is coming to Kentucky, and I'm like, how would you know this? There's no way you were tracking this guy before he committed, but somehow they know everything about his game.
No, there was a game in EuroLeague when he was 13 where he outplayed Victor Wembanyama. They are like, that's the shit that I'm hearing, and it's legitimate. You're joking about it. That's realistic sports talk in this area for a solid hour every single week. Where they're breaking down his film, and they're like, if you look at his stat line in this game, he actually went up against this guy who's on the NBA G League roster, and it seems like he outplayed him on the like. This guy's going to carry them to a national title if they can just get him eligible and all this stuff. And it's like he's going to be. For all the issues that Oscar had defensively, Big Z's going to make up for it this year. He's better than him here. He's better than him here. He's got the heart to rebound the same way that Sheboy did. And it's like, nobody fucking knows. Nobody has any idea whether or not this kid's good or not.
Well, maybe he could be, I guess. That's the bad part, is that maybe they're right. That's the worst case scenarios. They're all right. And they're like, we told you. We were right all along. I watched 5 seconds of a YouTube clip, and I said he was going to be great, and he was. So suck it, Titus and Rutherford. I was right. Last thing, I guess, conference realignment. Your thoughts on that with Louisville? I mean, you guys are certainly an interesting case where, like, geographically you're in the South, but also kind of not, because it kind of feels like you could be in the Big Ten easily. Also kind of feels like basketball being so important makes you a Big 12 or Big East candidate. You've already been in the Big East. I could talk myself into basically every single conference for Louisville if the ACC were in fact to dissolve. Yeah, I don't know if the ACC is going to dissolve, but it does feel like the most powerful programs in the conference won out, and whatever happens there. Long story short, Mike, I guess like just hit me with like your dream scenario for where Louisville ends up if all this game of musical chairs sees the ACC in a much weakened state.
Yeah, best case scenario is that Louisville hangs on in the ACC, and it does. Because, I mean, Florida State and Clemson keep doing the whole, we're going to leave, we're going to leave, we're going to leave. Nobody can find a way out of this grant of rights deal. They've been trying for like 8 years, and they've hired all these lawyers, and nobody can find a way out. So I do think that if there's going to be if the ACC is going to dissolve, it's not going to be in the immediate future. I don't know how much like they've strengthened the conference by adding SMU and Cal and Stanford, but those will help with the Olympic sports and all that stuff. But if it does wind up being a situation where Louisville's like any port in the storm, they've got to find a life raft. And we've been here, like 5 times in my lifetime, which is insane. It feels like the Big 12 is probably going to be the most likely option. I mean, the SEC and the Big 10 are already going to be at 20. If they expand, like Louisville's not going to be a top tier program that they go after. It's going to be Clemson, UNC, Florida State, like the football schools that are driving, and then North Carolina. But the Big 12, I think, could be a good mix of, you've got natural rivals there for Louisville. Cincinnati is the team that Louisville's played more than any other in the history of basketball. Them in Memphis, which Memphis could also be a Big 12 candidate. West Virginia, Louisville had a great rivalry with them in the Big East in both football and basketball. And then you also would be joining a conference that would have Kansas and Arizona and some traditional basketball powerhouses. And it would be good in football, good enough that you would still feel like you could have access to the college football playoff, and, winning conference championship would still matter and all that, but not nearly as just soul crushing and strangulation like the Big Ten and the SEC would be making that move. So I think that would be a nice fit, but I'm still kind of hoping that the ACC can hang on in some way, shape, or form for a few years, because it's a good home for Louisville.
Yeah, I know. I just see the writing on the wall. I felt like adding Stanford and Cal was kind of just sort of waving the white flag. I don't know.
We did win more games than Cal last year in basketball, so that
people forget. There you go.
3, we won 4. I feel like we've already got a rivalry going.
I can't wait for the first Cal Louisville game. Holy shit! I think I really was the only human being on earth that went to a Louisville basketball game in person, and a Cal basketball game in person on purpose. And I wasn't.
Which game did you go to last year?
And I wasn't paid to do either. Yeah, I went to Maui. Yeah, I went to the Louisville Maui games, and then I went to Butler at Cal in Berkeley last year, which is, boy, that was a raucous environment. That was, whew.
I'll give a shout out real quickly. The old Courier Journal beat writer, Brett Dawson, who was here last year, he did this thing about halfway through the year where both teams were so bad, where he polled college basketball experts and then people like me, like, who would win in a theoretical game between Louisville and Cal? And like, everyone gave their answer and like tried to answer it like earnestly. Like, of course, I made shitty jokes, but like, he posted that in the Courier Journal, and Louisville fans were fucking livid. Like, they were furious. Like, how dare you? This is a serious job. And he was like, I mean, he didn't say it, but he basically was like, what? They're 1-19 or whatever we were at the time. Like, what do you want me to write seriously about this program that I haven't already said?
Yeah.
But you maybe would have been the best expert to talk to about that. You saw both teams firsthand.
I know, I did. They, I felt like L. Ellis put Louisville over the top. I felt like just having, like, I'm not seriously going to entertain this. Never mind. God, they were bad. Both teams were very bad. Mike, thanks so much. You're the first guest that ever appeared on the show, I believe. And I will remind people of that every time you come on the show. You're the best. Thank you so much. Go follow Mike, Card Chronicle on Twitter, the Mike Rutherford Show. Louisville football is rolling. That's very exciting. I'm happy for you, buddy. You deserve to have a smile on your face watching Louisville sports, because it's been a while. And I'm very happy that you're back to enjoying the Cards.
We have all but guaranteed a loss to Pittsburgh this weekend.
Yeah, I know.
But hopefully it doesn't happen. I appreciate it. It's the Brohm era, baby. It's the Brohm era.
All right. Thanks, Mike. All right. Thank you to Mike. I'm glad he brought up UConn. I got killed for the show with Fanta. We didn't really talk that much about UConn, and UConn fans are fired up. They're like, we won the national championship, bro. You got John Fanta, Mr. Big East, on your show, and you don't even talk about the Big East team that won the national championship. I thought we did. I thought we mentioned UConn. But maybe we just like breezed right past them. But I'm glad Mike brought them up. I think UConn is going to be very good. I think UConn could repeat as national champions, obviously. It just worries me. Big guys with foot injuries worry me, which is why I am slowly talking myself out of Kentucky, because Aaron Bradshaw is supposedly an awesome big man for Kentucky, and he's got the foot injury. That's I don't know how long that's going to linger. I know they got the Croatian kid, Big Z. Is that how it works? Like, if your name just starts with Z and you're tall, you just go with Big Z?
Big Z always plays.
Big Z always plays. How many guys are named Big Z? Zydrunas Ilgauskas? We had Zistas Serakopoulos was my teammate at Ohio State. We called him Big Z. He was like a 6'11" Greek guy. We're just Big Z. A lot of Big Zs out there. But yeah, that worries me with Klingon. It does. And any part of me that isn't like fully in on UConn this year repeating as national champions is not about this team. It's about how much I loved last year's team. That's really it. And I don't do a great job of that. Like, that's one thing, that's a huge hole in my punditry, is that I'm not great at, like, if I fall in love with guys on a college basketball team and those guys leave, it's really hard for me to, like, trust the backfill is going to be good. It's really hard for me to trust that UCLA is going to be good this year, by the way. Jaime Jaquez, Tiger Campbell, fucking love those guys. They're gone. Jalen Clark's gone. UCLA should still be a pretty good team, I think. I don't think they're going to be ranked to start the season, but they could compete in the Pac-12 for sure. Bona's back, I know. But, like, I just don't Mick Cronin's a good coach. Like I think UCLA will definitely be in contention to make the tournament and have a good year and all that sort of thing. But like, I just mourn the loss of guys I loved, and that's kind of where I'm at with UConn. But sorry to UConn fans. I didn't mean anything by it with Fanta.
You already won one. Just get out of here.
That's the other thing. Yeah, you already won.
What more do you want? You want us to praise you? So you already won the national championship. Get over it.
Thank you, TJ. That's what I need. I needed that energy. Just in general, the please talk about my team, guys.
Yeah.
Just don't do that. Just don't do that. All right. I'm pretty open with like the teams I like and don't like, and the ones I don't like, I will tell you the ones I don't like because of my fandom. You know, like I grew up an IU fan, so I don't love Purdue. I don't love Kentucky. There are various reasons I don't like. I cheer against teams. I cheer against Duke a lot. But I like to think I'm pretty transparent. And if I'm not talking about your team, it's not because I fucking hate them. If I hated UConn, I would straight up tell you I hate UConn and fuck UConn. I would say that. I don't. It just slipped the mind, or we just breezed right past it. Well, there are more interesting things to talk about. Don't be a talk about my team guy. Don't be that. If we're not talking about your team, I don't mean anything by it. I actually talk about the teams I hate more than anything else.
You talk about Purdue, I think, more than you talk about literally any other team.
I have spent this offseason talking about Purdue and Kentucky more than those are like the top two teams. And also, by the way, I do think Duke's gonna be freaking really good this year.
Yeah,
I think Duke's gonna be. Those are like the three. If I'm doing a preseason poll, it might just be Purdue, Duke, Kentucky would be my top three right now. So I don't know what that says about. And then Tennessee, who like I don't even hate Tennessee. I just like their style of play is gross to me. But I respect I like Ziegler a lot and Vescovy a lot. But yeah, it's just like ugly. It's just like a fucking rock fight watching him play basketball. But I don't hate him. But yeah, there might be. I don't need to do this, TJ. What am I doing? I'm rattled already. It's mid-October and the haters have got me rattled already. What else before we go? Shoutouts. Do you have anything you want to say?
Logan Paul and Dillon Danis fight this weekend. Does this interest someone of your age group at all? Where does this fall on your sports recognition?
Who is Dillon Danis?
Okay.
Who is
that's a decent answer.
Why have I been I know the name because I've been told that these two people are fighting for like 6 months now.
It's the longest fight promotion ever. Dillon Danis is like maybe the best grifter in the history of the internet, at least. Like he got famous for being Conor McGregor's jiu-jitsu training partner in like 2016. And has like I don't know what he does for money. He doesn't fight. He has had like 2 professional MMA fights ever. He used to be a competitive jiu-jitsu practitioner, but now he just kind of like trolls people online and then agrees to fights and then doesn't show up. Professionally, I guess. I don't really understand either.
I have zero interest in this. Yeah. Zero interest whatsoever. But I don't begrudge anyone for having an interest in it. The Paul's who's fighting?
Logan.
Which
Paul.
one? Logan.
So.
That's the older one?
Yeah, older, part-time WWE guy as well.
And he's good, right? Like, aren't they both good at fighting, actually? Or at boxing?
Jake is getting good at boxing. Logan is more of like an exhibition boxer. Like, he fought like Floyd Mayweather in like a fake fight that didn't actually count.
Yeah. Who fought Nate Robinson? I remember
Jake.
That one. That was Jake. Okay.
Jake fought Nate Robinson, Ben Askren.
That was funny.
Tommy Paul.
I didn't watch that one, but I saw the clips of Nate Robinson getting his ass
getting flatlined.
That was pretty funny.
Shocking that the guy that's never fought before doesn't know how to fight.
Yeah. No, I have zero interest in this, but I also understand that people do, and I think I may have seen like Dillon Danis. Is that his name?
Yeah.
I've seen him. I've seen like tweets have popped up of him like just talking shit.
He's really active online.
Yeah,
he's way more active online than he is in seemingly any sort of like practicing for this fight.
So who's like favored? What's supposed to happen?
I mean, I would say Logan probably kills him because Logan seems like he's actually like sparring or trying to be good at boxing, and Dillon Danis is just like, I don't have a coach, I don't have training partners, I'm just kind of chilling.
It'd be funny if he just took a dive.
Yeah.
Canseco diving against Billy football remains one of the funnier things that this company's ever done.
It's one of the more shocking, like, what are we even doing here? Like sentences you could say. Like, Jose Canseco was going to fight Billy football, but he took a dive.
But he took a dive.
And he fleeced us for some money on that.
Yeah, he did.
I like these freak show, like, social media fights just because it's, like, stuff that gets everyone on Twitter on like, watching the same thing at one time.
Yeah.
Which is what I really enjoy about using the internet. is when everybody's watching the same thing and can make jokes about the same thing.
I feel bad for the old school boxing guys though, because I imagine they're just like
No, I've talked to my grandpa about it. He was a
distraught.
trainer in like old school New York boxing scene, and he's like, whatever's making money, I guess, is
Oh,
good
really?
for boxing. Yeah,
Really?
but
Oh, that's cool.
it's not like boxing. Like if you're like a purist of the sport, like those guys fucking hate it, but that's the business. Like it is what sells.
Yeah,
So
I
guess
imagine
so.
if I was a huge boxing purist fan, I would just be disgusted by what this sport, like the top. I mean, that's kind of
Yeah.
what.
It's-
I mean, that's kind of what like people, the NFL fans are doing with Taylor Swift, where they're like,
Taylor Swift invented football.
name
Taylor
your-
Swift put Travis Kelce on.
name your favorite NFL people of all time, and number one is Taylor Swift on
Yeah.
my list.
I mean, Jake Paul is the most famous boxer in the world today. And
Yeah,
I don't
that's
think that,
crazy.
like, or at least definitely the most famous boxer in America today.
That's crazy. That's crazy. All right. Well, I look forward to. I promise you this on Mostly Sports on Monday. I will be breaking it down.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like I know what the fuck happened for sure. I don't think I have anything else. I think Ohio State's going to beat Purdue. I think we lose to Purdue a lot. In football, we every time we go to Purdue, it seems like we lose. And somehow, this is it's like a very weird mystique around this game. TJ, what was the stat I saw today? Like 5 of the last 8 times we've played at West Lafayette, we've lost, and like they're almost never ranked. It's always an upset. It's not gonna happen this year. It's not gonna
Definitely
happen.
not.
It's not gonna happen this year. It could not happen. It couldn't possibly happen. We've already won at Indiana and at Notre Dame. So if we win at Purdue, Ohio State is the Indiana state champion. I think if the Brownsburg Bulldogs win the state championship, if my high school wins the state championship, they have to play Ohio State to see who the real best team in Indiana is.
And then winner plays Alabama.
And then the winner plays Alabama. I think that's
And then the winner plays the 2018 Cleveland Browns.
that's a hell of a tournament.
Yeah.
I wanted to go to the game. I thought Brandon and I were going to go to the game, but he's going to Baton Rouge, I guess. So, damn. All right. Thank you to Mike. Thank you to everyone watching, listening. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll be back on Tuesday.